Hey guys, Dakota from Cartropolis TCG. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile on my Rug Delver Legacy deck for Magic the Gathering. This has been used in a couple play testing videos. We should have more of those coming out. I really need to get Michael to play some different decks rather than just burn. But yeah, so this is my version of it right now. This is post banning, so Oko is gone. We kind of just swapped him over for Uro, essentially. This is more of like a mid-range Delver deck. This is not as tempo-ish as it used to be. We're moving away from the cheap counters, some of the cheap counter spells, cutting a stifle and stuff for more threats, another land, and some card advantage stuff. So I guess Delvers are pretty not as likely to blind flip in this deck. I mean, we still have a good amount of spells, but 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 25. So not the 30 that it used to be, but yeah, I still really like this deck. It's my favorite deck in Legacy. I love the color combination. I'm sad that we're not able to play Nimble Mongoose anymore. But I think there's just better cards now. Mongoose kind of just gets brick walled against a lot of things. But yeah, I'll get into it. If you just want to take a quick look at the deck list, this is how it is. So if you just here for that, that's fine. If you're newer and want the card explanations and stuff, feel free to keep watching. But yeah, we'll get into it. So first up, of course, we are a Delver deck, so we're playing 4 Delver Secrets. It's a 1-mana 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an instant or a sorcery, which we have a decent amount of, it flips over into a 3/2 flyer. So it's a very aggressive creature in blue, which is very rare. But yeah, very, very fast clock. Usually if your opponent fetches for something or thought seizes or whatever, they end up at 18 life. So it's just 6 swings and they're dead. 5 if you have a bolt. But yeah, so pretty standard for a Delver deck playing 4. Next up we got 4 Tarmogoyf. 2 mana, star 1. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of different card types in your graveyard. Toughness gets +1. So if you have a land, instant, sorcery creature, it's a 4/5 for 2. We also have enchantment in here, so it can be a little bit bigger. We don't have any artifacts or anything else. We also have enchantment in the sideboard. But yeah, usually it's a 2-mana 4/5. He does die to Fatal Push, Swords Bluff Shares, but it's still just, a pretty solid just creature in a lot of matchups. Doesn't die to Lightning Bolt normally. So still a pretty good threat. Possibly cutting down to 3 might be an option, but I have 4 foils, so why play less than 4? Now on to our unique threats. These are our main beaters. All they do is just attack. That's all these do. The rest of them are a little bit more techy, I would say. So for our 3 drops, kind of higher up on the curve, we got 2 Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, 3 mana, blue and green colorless. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped from the graveyard. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can gain 3 life, draw a card, and play a land from your hand onto the battlefield. And for 2 green and a blue, exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard, you can play him from the graveyard, which would trigger the gain life, draw a card, play another land. Pretty good with wastelands and stuff. Also can gain you some life. Pretty hard to kill. They have to exile him from the graveyard to keep getting rid of him. Otherwise, he just keeps coming back. So that's kind of we have a little bit of a long game that Rug Delver typically doesn't have. Or at least not historically. With Oko, we had some grind game, but now we just kind of shifted over to Uro. Uro will probably eventually get banned, which might be better for this deck, and we just shift into something else. But because it's kind of hard to play against Uro too, because you don't like want to waste graveyard like removal like on him. But sometimes like it's the only way to keep him away. Otherwise, they just keep playing him if you kill him. So it's kind of annoying. Next up, we got True Name Nemesis, 3 mana, 3/1 Merfolk. When it enters the battlefield, name a player or choose a player, and then it has protection from that player, so they can't like kill it, they can't block it. Basically, it's they can board wipe him or make you sacrifice him, but that's about it. Plague Engineer kind of kills this card, but that's why our like threats are so like diversified, so we don't just lose to any like one card. Like one card doesn't really kill us. We have a lot of different threats that are not always easy to answer. But yeah, just good against the control decks, good against any kind of fair deck. Not really good against any combo decks, other than like you can pitch it to Force of Will. It's a little slow. 3 mana, 3/1 comes down. Doesn't even start attacking until turn 4, if you even have a third land at the time, which we are playing a little bit like of an extra land than normal, but yeah, a little bit of our slower but more resilient threat. Next up, we have another slow, resilient threat, Hex Drinker, 1 mana, 2/1, and then you can pay 1 to level it up as a sorcery, and a level 3 to 7, it's a 4/4 protection from instants. And then at level 8 is protection from everything. So for 9 total mana, you got a 6/6. That's like a true name nemesis 6/6 essentially. The only way is to board wipe it or sack it or something. But the protection from instants is also pretty good. It only requires 4 total mana, which is a little bit more reasonable. It protects it from lightning bolt, swords of plowshares. Most removal in Legacy is instant speed. Also, being 4/4 is pretty big, so a lot of creatures can't stop it. I mean, I guess Tarmogoyf still blocks it at that point, but then next turn you just level up again, and then you can kind of get through the Tarmogoyf. But kind of like a late game card. Early game, I mean, against combo decks, you play it as a 1 mana 2/1. You just start attacking right away. But against any kind of fair deck, when you're just like top decking and just have extra mana to spend, like this is a pretty good threat. Again, it's kind of like a must answer. They don't kill it. You start leveling it up, and they can't kill it with instants anymore. Then you start leveling up even more, and it just gets worse from there. Also, sometimes they'll waste the removal on this, and then Tarmogoyf is like good to go. So that's the thing. Our other kind of 1 mana creature, Hooting Mandrills, 5 and a green, as Delve. So if we have extra cards in our discard pile, our graveyard, we can make this cheaper. So it's usually a 1 mana 4/4 with trample. Slightly worse than Tarmogoyf. It's like different than Tarmogoyf. It's a little bit smaller because Tarmogoyf is normally a 4/5. It is a little bit awkward with Tarmogoyf and with Uro, but we have so many like cheap draw spells, fetch lands, wastelands, stuff to fill up the graveyard pretty quickly, so it's usually not that much of a problem. Also, we have cards that can shuffle away different threats, so usually we're not like over on threats. So you just kind of pick which one you need at the time. But being 6 mana and a 4/4, it doesn't die to Lightning Bolt, doesn't die to Fatal Push. They have to Swords to Plowshares it, which also Tarmogoyf needs that. Uro kind of needs that. So a lot of our threats need to be Swords to Plowshare, which means like just kind of a lot of pressure on that card. But yeah, also has Trample, so if they're like chump blocking or Tarmogoyf, they can chump block this, they can't. So kind of good against Grixis Delver, because they can't Fatal Push, they can't Bolt, they can't block with the Young Pyromancer tokens. Pretty solid card. Also kind of good against Control or Combo, because it only costs 1 mana, so you can like play it and still hold up like counter magic and stuff. Most of our counter magic is free, but I mean it's still cheap to be able to like ponder and do that in the same turn or something if you only have 2 lands. Next up is kind of like my techs, I guess. Both adventure cards. We got Brazen Borrower, 3 mana, flash flying, can only block creatures with flying. So So like end of turn, we can flash it in. Or the main reason I'm playing it is Petty Theft, 2 mana, instant, return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to their owner's hand. So this is really important for like Merit Liege tokens. It can bounce any kind of token for that matter. It can just bounce like it can bounce permanent. So if your opponent plays like an artifact or enchantment that you can't remove, because we don't have any of that in main deck, this is a main deck answer to that. Against combo decks, you can end of turn flash it in, or you can just pitch it to Force of Will. So, but the adventure, you use the instant, and then it goes on an adventure, and then you can play it from exile as the creature. So it's pretty cool. It's like a 2-for-1 kind of thing. Very versatile card. Next up, we have Bone Crusher Giant, similar to Brazen Borrower, 3 mana, 4/3. The adventure side is Stomp. Damage can't be prevented this turn, and then it deals 2 damage to any target. So it can don't normally go at face with this, but you can kill creatures with it. And then from the adventure, you can pay 3 mana, have a 4/3, and then whenever it becomes the target of a spell, it deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. It does die to Lightning Bolt, but it is like a 2-for-1. It's basically 2 spells in 1. You kill their thing, put out a threat. Does die to Lightning Bolt, but then they take even more damage. So I like it so far. I think it's a really cool card. But yeah, that rounds out our threats. We got 8, 10, 12, 15 threats. So a little higher than normal. Normally we have 15. Normally we have 12. But if you think about it, these are kind of also spells that also count as creatures. So we're kind of playing 13. Also, this kind of dies the first time you use it. So it's kind of like a spell when you first use it to gain some life, draw another card, and play another land. So but yeah, that's it for our threats. Next up, we got our draw spells, or cantrips. We were playing 4 Brainstorm. Everyone should know what Brainstorm does. Draw 3, put 2 from your hand back. Works best with fetch lands. That's pretty much it. With a huge diversity of threats, you can shuffle away the ones you don't want and try to dig for the ones that are good in certain matchups. It's also good for finding Force of Wills and stuff to make sure we don't die. Also, we're not playing a ton of removal in the deck, so it can help find our Lightning Bolts or our Bone Crusher or our Brazen Borrower, and so we can kill anything that we might need to. Ponder, 1 mana, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, rearrange them, and then you may draw a card or shuffle and then draw a card. So, again, pretty good at finding what we need. You can dig for counter spells, removal spells, certain threats. Really good with fetch lands, because if you look at 3, you see one that you like, you put that on top, draw it, fetch away the rest, and you're good to go. Our last draw spell that we're kind of playing is an enchantment, Sylvan Library, 2 mana. Basically, at the beginning of your turn, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, rearrange it, and then you can draw an extra card for 4 life, up to twice. So, another way to get card advantage against control decks and combo decks, usually you just take 8 right away and just draw. And against mid-range or aggro decks, sometimes against burn or super aggressive decks, you'll take it out. But otherwise, it's still there to it can make Tarmogoyf bigger if they kill it, or you just kind of keep fixing what you want to draw and then fetch away the ones you don't want. So pretty good card. It's basically like Sensei's Dividing Top almost, but legal. It does cost 2 mana instead of 1. But yeah, pretty cool card. It fits more in my mid-range aggro theme that we kind of got going on. For removal spells, we got 4 Lightning Bolt, 1 red, deal 3 damage to any target, creature, player, planeswalker, whatever. Great for killing, pretty much everything in Legacy. Anything that doesn't die to this, we can just bounce the Brazen Borrower, or we can just fly over, or unblockable because of protection kind of thing, so we don't really worry about it. Or we can just Force the Will a creature that we can't. So Gurmag Angler kind of comes to mind. Can't bolt it, but we'll probably force it or bounce it to hand, or just attack through it. Also, Uro kind of gets around Gurmagangler by being bigger. But yeah, also in like combo decks, we just attack with our cheap threats and then finish them off Lightning Bolt. So pretty just good card. Now on to our counter spells. We're playing 3 Stifle. 1 blue, counter target activated or triggered ability. So super versatile card, hits a lot of things. It kind of fits in with our mana denial plan to where you'll stifle their fetch lands and wasteland their dual lands and then daze their spells, and they just have no mana to do anything. Meanwhile, like most of our spells are pretty cheap. Can also prevent us from getting wastelanded because sometimes we need to hit like 3 mana for some of our things. Now, our curve is a little higher than normal. Typically, the deck has like all 1 drops and then like Tarmogoyf, and that's it for 2 drops. But we're a little bit heavier. We got another 2 drop, got some 3 drops. These are like 2 and 3 drops, and then like these mana sinks kind of. So our curve is a little bit bigger, and we'll get to the lands in a second. But yeah, I can like stop like Rift Bolt against Burn. You can delay a turn on like Merit Liege token, the making of Merit Liege. You can stifle Planeswalker activations, so if they like Jace bounce, you can stifle it. It's like card disadvantage, but it buys you time. It's usually what it does. It just buys you time. And if it's bad, you just pitch to a force. So, but yeah, there's a lot of cool uses for this. You can stifle enter the battlefield triggers. It's like Stoneforge Mystic or like Batterskull. You could stifle Uro if you wanted to. But yeah, just super versatile. There's usually always something you can stifle. Certain matchups, it's not worth it keeping them in because what you're stifling doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'm still playing 3. I did shave 1 just because I wanted to fit in some other cards. And that's just the card I decided to cut. Next up, we got 4 days. 2 mana, counter target spell unless they pay 1 extra. So if they tap out, you daze their spell. And you can play this for free by bouncing an island back to your hand, which is all of our dual lands. So really good going first, because you play like turn 1 Delver, they go turn 1 creature, you daze, counter it, or whatever. And our land is a little bit like, our curve is really low, so bouncing the land is fine. Also, you can bounce the land back to your hand and then Brainstorm, shuffle it away, and then fetch, and then like stay on 2 lands if you're kind of getting 3 or 4 lands, so going back down to 2 or 3 is pretty good. Late in the game, you just ditch it to a force, usually. But yeah, it's just, our curve is so low, we kind of force our opponents to play into us, so sometimes they just have to play into the daze, and if we have it, then it's just really bad for them. Next up, we got our 6 forces. 4 Force of Will, 5 mana, counter target spell. You can pitch exile a blue card from your hand and pay a life to, instead of pay the mana, so it's free. How many blue spells we got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 29. So a pretty good amount of blue, if I counted right. So that's cool. But yeah, just if we go second in the blind against a random opponent, having one of these is nice just because you don't just insta-die turn 1. It doesn't happen that often, but having it is nice. Also, there's just what I was saying with like Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt doesn't kill everything, so Force of Will can counter the things that we can't really answer, or like certain threats that are like hard to deal with. We don't have any like artifact removal other than like bouncing it, so this can counter that too. But yeah, just it's forceful. We have to play it. Next up, we got Force Negation. This is kind of a newer one. It's been around for a little bit at this point. 3 mana, counter target non-creature spell, and then you exile it. So that can hit a lot of things. And then you can also exile a blue card from your hand. You don't have to pay the life, and then you can play it for free. Sometimes we actually have the 3 mana to play this without having to 2-for-1 ourselves. That doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. Exiling is really important for this. So like against even like for ourselves, for example, Life from the Loam from like lands, hitting that exiles it so they can't like dredge it back. Exiling removal spells against control decks so they can't Snapcaster Mage to flash back like Swords of Plowshares or something's pretty good. I guess it's a little awkward if you like exile a Planeswalker or an enchantment with this, because then your Tarmogoyfs stay a little smaller. That sometimes happens, but I think the trade-off of exiling some stuff is fine. But yeah, that's it for counter spells. So that's basically 10 free counter spells and then 3 one costing very like situational kind of tempo counter spells. Next on the lands, we're playing 8 fetches. You can play whatever fetches you want. I like playing the rug colored ones. I like kind of matching my deck. I don't like looking at my hand and seeing like black fetches in my rug deck. That's just me being stupid. But I tried to mix it up as much as I could, because if you get like surgical extraction, they hit all of your fetches. You know, you can definitely like not run out of lands. So I do a 3-3-2 split with 3 Scalding Tarn, 2 Misty Rainforest, and 2 Wooded Foothills. Pay a life, sack it, search for basically any of these dual lands. Really good with Brainstorm and Ponder. Good for Hooting Mandrills, good for Uro, good for Tarmogoyf. So really important to play a good amount of these. Good with Sylvan Library too. Next up, we've got our dual lands. We're playing 4 Tropical, which is the blue-green one. And we're doing that because we need double green to escape Uro back. Normally, rug decks play 3 and 3, but we're playing an extra one just for Uro, so we're more likely to get him off. Because if our opponent like wastelands us, like if we're playing 6 and they wasteland us 3 times, we can't like Uro. We don't have enough blue and green in the deck. But this way, they have to wasteland us like 4 times. Or they have to wasteland us 3 times and hit all 3 of our drops. But then we have a 4th one and can still play other things. So it's whatever. Our opponent might think we're only playing 3 and wasteland all of our green, thinking we can't play any of our like Tarmogoyfs anymore, and we just like have a 4th one. But yeah, we're also playing more green in the deck. We're playing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 green spells main deck, and 5, oh my god, I can't talk. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 green spells main deck and 5 red spells main deck. So we're a little bit more skewed in the green. Then this is Volcanic Island, blue-red. So all of our lands are blue, so we can cast all of our blue spells. And then whichever color we need, we can use for our other spells. Typically, we get Tropical Island first, because you'll be like usually cantripping or playing like a Hex Drinker or a Delver first, and then on our second turn, if our opponent has a creature that we have to kill, we can go Brainstorm or Ponder on the green, and then get a land and then get the red. So the sequencing is just better that way. Because if you go red first and then Brainstorm, and you get a land and a bolt, then you have to fetch another Volcanic to get so you can Lightning Bolt, and then you have 2 Volcanics and you don't have any green. So it's just stuff like that. You want to make sure you have all your colors at the right time. So yeah, that's pretty important. Then lastly for our lands, we got 4 Wasteland. Destroy. It can add Colorless, which actually casts some stuff in our deck. Helps with Tarmogoyf, Uro, True Name, leveling up Hex Drinker, Hooting Mandrills, all of these, and Library, and maybe Daze if you don't, or like even Force. So it actually like casts a lot of our stuff. But you can sacrifice it and destroy target non-basic lands. So you hit other people's dual lands. You can hit like tech lands. You can hit like pretty much anything, like any kind of tech land your opponent has. It's there for. It doesn't hit basics, but so if our opponent fetches out basics early, that's pretty good against us, because then it helps them stabilize. We can't really deny them mana if they have basics, but not a lot of people play basics in Legacy. And if they do, you can know on turn 1 to hold up Stifle, maybe if you're in game 2 or 3, but you hold up Stifle and then they'll fetch, you stifle it, and then they maybe have a dual land in hand and they only have 1 fetch and they're trying to fetch first to have a basic, and you just deny them their basic. Then they play their dual land turn on their second turn, you just wasteland that, and you're just up even more. But yeah, so 19 lands, one extra, a couple extra threats, and we cut a little bit of the spells. But that's it for the main deck. And I guess we'll get on to the sideboard. First up, we got 2 Veil of Summer. So Veil of Summer is pretty sweet. This card probably will get banned in Legacy at some point. But 1 green, draw a card. If an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn, spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and black until end of turn. So this is just anti hand attack, anti counter spell, anti removal spell, and it draws you cards. So it's basically a 2-for-1. So if your opponent thought seizes you, you Veil of Summer, you draw a card, and their thought seize just can't hurt you or anything. Yeah, so that's crazy. Stops him to Turok. They can't force a will, so it helps you like resolve threats like True Name. Yeah, this card's like gross. Like this card's just actually just gross. Because like all the combo decks that aren't blue play black for like hand attack and stuff, and that just destroys them. Yeah, it feels bad whenever you get Veil of Summer. Next up, we have like our anti-blue. So you have 2 Pyroblast and 1 Red Elemental Blast. Pyroblast is better, but again, we don't want them to surgical and hit all of them. So this one can you target a permanent, and if it's blue or red, you destroy it. Whereas this one, you have to target a blue permanent, blue spell or blue permanent to counter or destroy it. So an instance where that matters is say we don't have enough mana or for whatever reason, we need to play our Hooting Mandrills and we don't have enough cards in the discard pile. You can just Pyroblast for nothing just to put a card in the discard, and then you can like play this. Like end of turn, Pyroblast, target their land or whatever, doesn't destroy it. And then next turn, untap, tap out, exile your graveyard, play Hooting Mandrills. It doesn't come up that often, but that's something you could do. Whereas Red Elemental Blast, if they don't have any blue permanents or don't play like a Ponder on their turn, you can't use this. So it's very niche. Also, this is like beta, so that's cool. So next up, this little package I'm trying. It's like a mid-range package, I would call it, or like anti-control kind of. So Life from the Loam, 2 mana, sorcery, return up to 3 target lands from your discard pile to your hand. So this can get back your dual lands. If they keep wastelanding you, they can get back fetches, so you can like Ponder and Brainstorm. You can get back Wasteland to keep attacking your opponent's like dual lands. Like if this were like if you have this in like some sort of mirror match kind of thing, you have to be careful because like sometimes that's too slow and they'll just Delver and just kill you. But if you're like in a close game and you just like Life from the Loam, get back 3 Wastelands and just Wasteland, they just lose all their lands and can't cast anything for the rest of the game, then the game's like over. So like good against like Death and Taxes when they're constantly trying to wasteland you, because this lets you kind of get out of that. Even if like, Death and Taxes don't have counter spells. So if they counter this, if some deck counters this, you can just dredge, mill 3 and get it back. That also works with Brainstorm. So you can like Brainstorm, draw 3, put 2 bad cards on top, and then next turn dredge and mill those cards away. So that's pretty cool with Brainstorm. But yeah, just gives you inevitability. You just keep getting lands back. You can shuffle them back into your deck, Brainstorm, Ponder, just try to draw more actual cards. Next up, we got Klothys, God of Destiny, 3 mana, red, green, colorless, legendary enchantment creature. So another enchantment. It has Indestructible, and it's very unlikely that this becomes a creature. But basically, it's an enchantment that at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you exile a card from a graveyard, usually your opponent's. If it's a land, you add mana, red or green. Otherwise, you gain 2 life and it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So against like control decks, like it's hard for them to kill this. If it's not a creature, they can't Swords to Plowshares it. So it just kind of sits there, and you just like they have tons of spells in their discard because they've been pondering, brainstorming, and trying to kill your stuff. So you just like leave it out for. I'm assuming you've dealt them some damage, so just leave it out for like 3 or 4 turns and they just die. Um, yeah, I don't think it will ever become a creature. It's just really unlikely. Um, or you can also exile a land to make mana. So if you need like a third, like an extra land, or to pay for like a daze or something, or play around days, um, or to play like both of the effects in the same turn, like both the adventure and the creature, then you can use the mana if you need it. But just super like annoying card for a lot of decks to like deal with. Next up, we got kind of like a mix of stuff. So we got 2 surgical extraction. This is our graveyard hate. It basically, we don't have any black in the deck, so we just pay the 2 life. You target a card in your opponent's graveyard, or is it opponent? Maybe it's ours. It's 2. So it could be anybody, but you can't pick basic land. So basically, you target a card in the graveyard, and then that you get a look at their hand, graveyard, and deck, and you exile all the cards with the same name as that card. So like in Uro mirror matches or against control Uro decks, they play the Uro, it sacks itself, goes to the graveyard, then you use that, exiling it in all Uros, and you never have to deal with Uro again. It is a minus, you're losing a card, but you take away their inevitability. This is also good against Life in the Loam, against lands, against miracles. You can like hit their Swords Plowshares or like Terminus and just like take away half the removal. Maybe they like, I don't think you would ever really hit Ponder or Brainstorm. I don't really like that. But sometimes you also get a look at their hand, which is like really relevant, so then you kind of know how to play the rest of the game. So that like knowledge is sweet to have. But yeah, just free is free. Against like Reanimator, if they like go turn 1, I don't remember the name of the card's called. I haven't played Legacy in like over a year really against like other people. But yeah, if they go turn 1, put a big Gristlebrand into the discard, and then try to like bring it back out. While you have no mana out, you can use Surgical and hit all the Gristlebrands, and then you're like good to go. So probably the best graveyard hate, I think, in Legacy. We don't have Snapcaster Mage to like flash it back, but it's free. We try to keep the curve as low as we can when possible. Next up, we kind of have a mix of artifact and enchantment removal that also kind of do other things. So we have Return to Nature. It's 2 mana. It is expensive, but it's very versatile. So you can destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or exile a card from the graveyard. So it counts as graveyard removal if we need a 3rd one against certain decks, but it also can hit artifacts and enchantments. So it's just a versatile card for 2 mana. It's instant, so that's cool. Next, we got Ancient Grudge, 2 mana, destroy target artifact, flashback for 1 green, destroy another artifact. So again, more artifact removal. You can kill 2 of them with this. So against like so I guess like against the mono red like stacks decks, you can hit like 2 pieces with this, which would be pretty good. I don't think Affinity is really played in Legacy anymore. I'm trying to think what else this is good. I can't really recall a ton of artifacts right now, but I'm sure there's a decent amount of them. Oh, against like Stoneforge decks, you can bring in this to hit like their Batterskull and their sword, like, or GT or something. So that's crazy. But yeah, just hits 2 artifacts for 1 card. And then our last one is a Braid. 2 mana, deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. So if we need creature removal, like kind of what we're going to get to last, this is another way to kill creatures. Or if you need more artifacts, then you can destroy artifacts. So if we go against like an artifact deck, we have 3 cards we can bring in. If you go against like an enchantment deck, we only have the 1. Graveyard 3, removal 4. So it's kind of like versatile like that. I like versatile cards. Okay, and then next up we have our like last 3 pieces of like removal, essentially, because we only have kind of 6 cards main deck that kill things. So the first one we have is Submerge, 5 mana. If an opponent controls a forest and you have an island, you may play Submerge without paying its mana cost. Put target creature on top of its owner's library. So this is really good for mirror matches or any kind of blue-green deck, or like the fair green decks like Maverick, or like black-green Depths, or I don't know, what's Nick Fit, I think is what it's called. But yeah, or elves too. But yeah, any deck that plays green, because we're playing the blue. But yeah, if they have a forest, you can just put a creature on top of their deck. So if they go to fetch, you can just put it on top of their deck and they shuffle it away. Or if it's like a really expensive creature, you can put it on top of their deck, and then they draw that same card, and then they have to like play it again, maybe into a Daze or Force Will or something. But it's free, and it's just really good. I usually always play like one. I remember when this like Rug Delver used to play like 3 of these. Back when there was like a lot of mirror matches and stuff, because like just putting their Flip Delver like back on top of their deck's pretty annoying. Or yeah, pretty good card. Next up we have a Brazen Borrower, a second Brazen Borrower, because the first one like is so good. I just wanted a second one. It can bounce anything, so this is just an answer to anything, like literally anything. Our opponent brings in artifact hate like against us, or like enchantments, or just huge creatures like Gourmet Gangler. Stuff that we can't answer normally, this just does for us. Also, there's another flying, so against like control decks, it's a end of turn threat you can flash in or something. Yeah, I think this card's crazy. It is a little heavy on the mana. It's like 2 and 3, but I think the versatility warrants playing it. Then our last card is our only board wipe, because we are a kind of like an aggro control deck, so we don't normally want to be playing the control role in a lot of matchups. But against like elves, it's 2 mana, deals 2 damage to each creature without flying. So doesn't kill our Delvers, doesn't kill Tarmogoyf. I guess technically it kills True Name Nemesis and Hexdrinker if this isn't like leveled up. Doesn't kill this, doesn't kill this. This has flying, so it doesn't kill most of our stuff. And then it's really good at killing like elves. It's good against Death and Taxes, kills a lot of stuff. I guess it doesn't kill like Flicker Wisp and some things, but it still kills a lot. Against like Maverick, kills like Mother of Runes, Noble Hierarch, Stoneforge Mystic. Goblins, it kills a lot of things. Merfolk, if you can keep the lords, you can like wipe them all out because they're all like 2/2s. Yeah, it's just another piece of removal. And then the Tumble Side for 6 mana, it deals 6 damage to each creature with flying. So worst case scenario, if you're going against Miracles and they entreat the Angels you or something, you can like tumble and just kill all the Angels. It's literally happened to me once. It'll probably never happen to me again. But it is there. That Miracles player should probably have done it end of turn. Because this part, like, this is a sorcery, so it can't. Like, if they end a turn, put out the Angels, then you just die. Whereas they just happened to draw it on their turn. Like, they didn't know it was there. And then they just played it, and I just tumbled them. But, yeah, that's the deck. I think it's a great deck. I think it's one of the best decks right now. Combo, there's a lot of combo decks. We're playing 6 forces, so we have a decent chance of not dying on turn 1. We have resilient threats. We have a pretty fast clock because we have 8 beaters just right off the bat, maybe even 9 beaters. We can keep a lot of 1-land hands with our draw spells. We have cheap removal. And yeah, I think this is like almost like the perfect deck. It doesn't have that many weaknesses. I mean, all of our lands are dual lands, but pretty much everyone in Legacy, like, they're all playing dual lands. So I guess we like lose the Blood Moon or Back to Basics if we can't like Force a Will it. But even if they like Blood Moon us, we still have like all reds, so then we can still like top deck a couple bolts or Bone Crusher Giant and maybe kill them if we get them low enough. Back to Basics, if we can get out 2, we can use Brazen Bar to bounce the Back to Basics and untap all of our lands, and then we're kind of good again. So even we had kind of an out to that. We kind of get hit a little bit by Graveyard Hate, because Graveyard Hate, like Rest in Peace, would hit Uro, Tarmogoyf, and Hooting Mandrills. But these can still, they go on into exile. These can still, like, we still have ways around pretty much everything. So I think it's like pretty much the perfect deck, at least for right now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, and I hope you enjoy all the future match videos to come. Hopefully I can get some participants. We started doing local tournaments again under the rules. We're in phase 3 now. We might go back to phase 2, but we're still have a low amount of like players in the tournaments anyway. But maybe I can get some recorded games against some other decks with this. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, if you guys have any like suggestions or comments about the deck, please feel free to comment. If you like the video, please leave a like. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. And thank you very much for watching. And I hope you guys all have a great day. And bye.